Hello, good evening, and welcome back. So in Damage Control, we have the Education Secretary trying to reassure people that it is actually okay to go outside and we can get children back. And although trying to say before that, yes, young people shouldn't think that they're invincible, they are now saying, well, younger people aren't at much of a risk. So it should be okay for younger children to be able to return to school. But don't worry, we'll be sure to keep their school sizes small, make sure that they all have their rotations, and that they don't interact with each other. So fantastic. So apparently get rid of all the socializing that you can, but you will actually have smaller class sizes. So hopefully then the pupils will actually get the attention that they need and will be able to learn and will be encouraged to learn instead of just given material to try and digest somehow. And if they aren't bothered, then they will just fall behind. And we have Manchester leading the way. Not in knife crime, not in gun crime, not in acid attacks, that'd be London, but instead in closing roads and not allowing cars through and trying to reimagine what travel will look like after coronavirus. That, hey, you know those cars that we've been perfecting over 100 years? Do we actually need them? You know how cars are a sign of individual liberty and freedom and help to destroy the USSR? Yeah, but do we really need them? You know how cars enable people from any background to actually have individual mobility, to travel incredible distances, no matter their age or fitness, and enable them to carry much more than they normally would, so that they can go for a weekly shop, for example, and how vehicles can help to transport heavy goods and services a long way and get the important things to where they're needed at a fraction of the price and time that it would take if you tried to carry them there or cycle them there. Well, do we really need them? Is it really worth it? And hey, seeing as people are moving into cities more and more, then we don't need cars in the cities, especially because we can just walk around. And don't you be thinking that what if something goes wrong and we need to repair something, because hey, we'll burn that bridge when we get to it. So, school's not closed for summer. I'm sorry, Alice Cooper. Instead, they are trying to push ahead with the reception year 1 and year 6 coming back. After all, younger children don't socialise as much out of school, and therefore they're not going to be spreading it around. And we're going to be fine without coronavirus infection, and it's definitely not going to be that children will spread it to one another without knowing that they have it and then pass it off to their grandparents. That isn't going to be a problem, apparently. It's very, very interesting how the narrative changes when they wish to push their agenda. If they think, oh, Christ, we're going to miss out on a load of children being indoctrinated and being forced into inculcate the teachings that we have for them. How can we spin this narrative? Oh, well, children aren't as much affected. They aren't socializing as much. But most importantly, what if they come from bad homes whereby school is the highlight of their week? As Mr. Williamson said here, that they know there are children from difficult or very unhappy homes for whom school is the happiest moment in their week, and it's also the safest place for them to be. At that point, if you're trying to suggest that state-sanctioned education is going to be the best part of the week because the home life is so god-awful, then isn't that when they're thinking that social services should step in? If home life is really so bad that it is dangerous for the child to be there and the parents are causing harm to the child, then perhaps that's where they go, yeah, maybe we should try and see if we can do something about that. And on top of that, would you like to hazard a guess as to where these parents learned their parenting skills, seeing as we have had this state education for several decades now, and the majority of people have, of course, gone through state schools. And that's what's come out of it. If what has come out is saying that 18 years of education is not worth $5.53 per hour, and that you can't raise a child without hurting them viscerally, then perhaps there needs to be something done about the education system, and perhaps shrinking these down to a class size of 15 will certainly be a way of helping it. But is there any way that you might think we'll actually be able to get back to having some sort of sense of structure and order, and not just trying to get children to understand sex and be transvestites or transsexuals? maybe that's where more of the focus should be going. So, Mr. Williamson said the government's approach was based on the best scientific advice with children at the very heart of everything we do, and the impact of it would be carefully monitored. We've been quite clear all along that we'd only start inviting more children when our 5 key tests have been met. That position has not changed, nor will it. And it is nice that we accept science and that there isn't a particularly religiously dogmatic agenda being pushed to say that it's all due to a particular god or a particular religious law. I can definitely get on board with that. And hey, the scientific method is fantastic. It is using models based on past performance in order to predict the future. The predictable nature of models is what makes science useful. It is questioning things and finding things out, not just theoretically, but also empirically. It's actually doing it and gaining those results yourself. That is definitely a fantastic way to do things. It is not caring about your feelings, but instead is going with the facts. The issue, though, is that people are inherently emotional, and that is why you need peer reviews to be done, because everybody will have their own little bias. And so if you get 150 people to look at the same thing, they'll all take away something different. So then the things that they can agree upon, that's probably what's true, because they're all trying to go in it with the same objective standpoint, but they will have their own biases, in which case, once all is said and done, and they can agree, okay, yes, this is actually what's happened, and every individual will try and say, oh, it's because of this, or because of this, or because of this. They go, yeah, probably not. But hey, we can at least agree on the fact here of what has happened, and therefore what seems to happen. Let's not say that correlation is causation, but nonetheless, we can find these results. In which case, yeah, that is exactly how science works. It is the hunt for truth, not the hunt for authoritarianism. So, as they say, pupils will be kept in groups of no more than 15 and there will be regular cleaning. Together, these measures will create an inherently safer system where the risk of transmission is substantially reduced for children, their teachers, and also their families. Got a map of the hotspots, the busiest areas. Good stuff. Makes sense. So will infections rise if the R rate rises higher than 1, then yes, of course it will. And Liverpool and Hartlepool said their schools will not reopen at the start of next month. They'd rather they be home, if you wish to buy the narrative. They'd rather they be in danger. Or they'd be saying that they'd rather they were safe because, hey, is home life dangerous because of domestic violence, or is home life safe because then they're not interacting with people to get the coronavirus, even though it doesn't seem to have any change on the infection rate. And I know that I go on about this one a lot, but I still believe that one of the main areas would be in supermarkets, whereby, sure, they will have their queues outside, social distancing, which people may or may not actually follow, and you can actually feel somebody's breath down your neck, and you're concerned that they're going to pickpocket you, not that they're just closer than 6 feet, but they get disturbingly close. And then once you're inside the shop, people are brushing past each other. They don't care. They don't follow the arrows on the ground. It doesn't matter. And the shop knows that they don't want to do that because people have not made a route of the shop and know exactly what they want from each shelf and will just follow it around mindlessly. It is not one long queue in a shop. Instead, they will get something and then remind themselves that they need to go get something else, in which case they need to double back and go back to get it. That is how humans work. And therefore, supermarkets will not want to stop that because it's good for profits if people stay in the shop longer and purchase more. So the government's guidance says schools should reduce class sizes and keep children in small groups of 15 and under without mixing with others, stagger break and lunch times and school arrival and departure times, clean more frequently and reduce the use of shared items in outdoor space. Bring things with you from home and take them with you. Everything else is left at school the whole time and is all cleaned. And of course they're listening to union leaders and the door is always open. Conservatives listening to unions. Okay, take that with a pinch of salt. So, closing roads, this is in Deansgate, in Manchester city centre here, where they've closed things off because, hey, we need more space for cyclists and pedestrians. Now that we can go out and exercise as much as we want, then of course we need to be able to get around on foot and lightly and not carry things around with us. And of course we've seen that TfL has gone under recently in London, which is also where Sadiq Khan has said he would be shutting some of the busiest roads in the city. Yes, you know, those roads which are most important in order to get the vital supplies around. let's just close them. There will definitely be no unintended consequences of government action, because that is clearly never the case. But, he said, many Londoners have rediscovered the joys of walking and cycling during lockdown. By quickly and cheaply widening pavements, creating temporary cycle lanes, and closing roads to through traffic, we will enable millions more people to change the way they get around our city. Yeah, you will. You will change how millions of people get around the city. Let's hope it doesn't screw up your supply line too much, because more people are getting on the roads. I don't know if you've noticed, and this is also the same time when you decide to close roads. And it might be a surprise, but I think we all know our road system is rather inadequate at the moment, in which case more needs to be done, and closing these roads is not a suitable solution if you're trying to get a lot of people around as quickly as possible. And if you want people to be out as little as possible, then that means they have to load things up more often. For example, when going to the supermarket for their weekly shop, then they will need to take a vehicle in order to load it up. Trying to put this all in panniers and rucksacks on a bicycle is not going to happen. People will not do it. But hey, it's been good for bicycle shops. So even before the ban came, of course, we have a terrible photo of Levenshulme here being reimagined. Stop it. At least they've got the ethnic minorities there. Not such a minority, though, is it? That at least the bicycle shops have been profiting. They've been enjoying it. So at one point, they say here, this week shares in Halfords, the country's biggest chain of cycle shops, had jumped 17%. The company said sales of some cycle equipment had risen 500% since the government ordered us all to stay at home on March 23rd. Ken Foster says his bike shop, Foster Cycles, in Chorlton cum Hardy, Manchester, is the busiest it has been since his grandfather opened it back in 1954. As it has been especially good weather, because no one's driving, and it's good for the green plan, isn't it? It's good for the environment. It's good for air quality, and so exactly as we thought, that is the reason they're trying to big up walking and cycling and say, well, we need extra space because of social distancing, therefore we shouldn't be having these roads and nobody should be driving. And if you're out driving, then you better make sure that you're a key worker and that you're going somewhere that you should be going. But if you're walking and cycling, then you're exercising, in which case that's fine. So we will punish you if you're using a mode of transport which we don't want you to use. And we will also discourage you from using public transport, because that's not safe. You need to keep your distance. If everybody is out and about walking and cycling around cities, then of course keeping a 6-foot distance will be almost impossible. Maybe barely made possible through pavement widening and being able to walk and cycle on roads which have now been closed. In which case that will just further push the narrative that, hey, we don't need cars and we can just walk and cycle around. And that is definitely what they will intend to do. So I hope we all enjoy our larger legs from the cycling. Get the fresh air. Enjoy your freedom while you can. And let's hope these supply lines don't get screwed up any more than they have to be, seeing as these roads are now being closed. So until next time, as always, have a good one.